Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the new adventures of K-Man and Spence. I am Spence, Spencer Bennett, and that is K-Man, Kieran Collins. Kieran, say hello.
I am Vengeance.
Kieran is Vengeance. That, of course, is a reference to what broke the internet last week with the Batman trailer.
Dude, holy shit.
Robert Pattinson, as the internet has dubbed him, which I think is fitting. We had Batfleck, now we have Pattinson, but we also still might have Batfleck. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that later.
Yes, we're going to get all sweaty into the fandom. Don't you worry, people. But we're going to start. So last week, I said that we didn't quite have a structure worked out for how this show was going to go. And we sort of figured out a structure of sorts. And we're going to start the show this week with kind of like a little cold open of what are you reading? What did you read this week? Whatever random thing you read, because we'll have a segment later with the comic issues that we're going to be following monthly, bi-weekly, whenever they come out. And then we'll kind of talk about those in a different segment. But this segment, we're going to talk about stuff that just random things we happen to read, maybe something we saw that caught our eye that we picked up. So Kieran, tell me what has been something that you've read this week, not related to our current weekly issue or monthly issues, and give us your quick thoughts.
Well, it was my birthday last week, and my lovely friend / roommate, Spencer Bennett, brought me to Barnes & Noble, and I bought some manga. It's my first time ever reading manga. I've been a big old weeb for anime for like a while, but never read manga. I picked up Demon Slayer and Astro Boy, some like collections of them. The Astro Boy is an omnibus, so I've been kind of digging my way through that in addition to reading the issues we're going to talk about later. It's fucks. I shouldn't say that. I can't say that. Damn it. Okay. I did it again.
My God.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I just wanted to just like to give it like a quick little pitch, because obviously you're going to hear Astro Boy and everybody knows who Astro Boy is. And I went into it being like, oh, this will be like a fun little kid-friendly comic. It is definitely kid-friendly, but it's also like that he was very inspired by Walt Disney, the guy who made Astro Boy, and he's like the Japanese Walt Disney. That's how they describe him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's in the way of how the early Disney cartoons are like kind of low key fucked up, or screwed up, messed up, right? In that I have a potty mouth, man. I have a real potty mouth.
You start to realize how much you swear when you have a podcast. I've learned that.
Yeah, man.
It becomes concerning. You're like, wow, I speak very vulgar.
Yeah, it's just part of the language. Wow, that's crazy. But anyway, it in the same way, it's messed up like the early Disney cartoons, where there's like stuff where you're like, that like there's like little frames and like references and stuff, and you're like, that was kind of dark.
In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the movie begins with the huntsman chasing her down with a knife, trying to carve her heart out. That's what the queen tells him to do. There's some dark imagery.
I need to rewatch that movie for sure.
It's a pretty dark movie.
But basically, Astro Boy. I'm gonna spoil the first arc, but like it's fine because it's a big ass omnibus, and so if you're gonna read it, like this is a great way to recommend it. The first story is like the birth of Astro Boy, which doesn't count. That's a great issue. But then it has like this long arc, and because it's manga, it's organized into like these really big chunks of story. It's not like issue to issue like it is with comics, but they have chapters, so it's cool. But the first one it starts with like the teacher, and he's got his dog who's like really well trained, and it's like, oh, how is my dog this well trained? And then it tells a story about how his dog got kidnapped, and like they did surgery on the dog and turned it into a cyborg that thinks it's a human and really erased all its memories. So it was this dog that just wants to be a dog again, but it's instead this like it's made to be a killer and like a robot, and the bad guys are taking control. He's like a henchman for the bad guys. Number 44 is his name because he's just a number. But he comes to realize eventually that he's a dog, and it's like this huge like philosophical moment of realization of my whole life is a lie. I'm not a robot. I'm a dog. I still share 95% of my traits with a dog, but they just made me think I was something more, right?
Wow.
And it's crazy. It's so good. It's so good.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Very Japanese.
Indeed. It sounds very anime. Do you remember the live action Astro Boy movie that came out like years ago?
I didn't see it. Was it good?
I didn't see it either. I just remember that it existed. I figured you had seen it, so that's surprising.
I see the reason I've seen it a few times as an option. I think it's an American made movie. I think
I'm like 90% sure.
Yeah, so that's why I've kind of steered clear of it, because I
Mhm.
know like I watched a bit of the Astro Boy animated series, and like the first few episodes, like the really early cartoons, and those are cool. Those basically follow the same plot as the comic books do. But that
Mhm.
particular plot in the forward in that book, they said that particular plot, the one I just described, they banned that from the cartoon. They wouldn't let them put that
Really
in the American cartoon. It's in the
interesting.
Japanese version, but when they ported it to America and dubbed it, they didn't dub that episode because they're like, that's too much for kids to handle.
Interesting. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, kind of related to dogs as well. The random thing that I read this week was, I think in like 2017 or 18, Jim Lee pitched the great Jim Lee,
The
who did
great.
a lot at Fandome, but the great artist Jim Lee pitched to DC the idea of like rebooting Hanna-Barbera, so like Scooby-Doo and Wacky Races, Yogi Bear, all those crazy old cartoons, into like more like adult weird series. And that was during my time where I wasn't like really following comics closely, so I didn't know much about that. But many months ago, in relation to you, I gave you a gift. You gave me the gift of the first volume of Scooby Apocalypse, which is
Mm-hmm.
the first title in the Hanna-Barbera Beyond movement, I guess. I don't know what they call it in comics, but where it's post-apocalyptic Scooby-Doo. Shaggy's a crazy hipster with lots of tattoos. Scooby has like cyberkinetics built in him, which is how I was relating that to Astro Boy with the cyborg dog. Same way with Scooby and with Scrappy too, but I won't get too far into spoilers because I know you want to read it, Karen, so I don't want to
Yeah,
ruin it for you on
I
air.
started it. I started it, and they were at Burning Man in the first scene.
Yes.
Like that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it
I'm all
is.
for that.
It's very much Shaggy. The thing that and of course, you know, you have Fred, Velma, Daphne. Velma's like a crazy mad scientist. Daphne's runs like a conspiracy show on TV, and Fred's her cameraman, and they've like known each other since college. Fred's hopelessly in love with Daphne. You know, standard Scooby-Doo tropes, but in a really weird post-apocalyptic monster thing. Scooby's like biting monsters' necks, and it's crazy violent, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think what it really nails, though, the reason I love the first volume, I'm obviously going to pick up the next. I believe there's 6. It ended, but there's 6 volumes. I've only read the first one, so I'll keep you guys updated how much I enjoy the rest of it. But the first volume is great, and I think what it does really well is, as wild as a concept as it is, it really retains the classicness of those characters. They still feel like Fred, like Daphne, like Velma, like Shaggy, like Scoob. As much as it is absurd, and they're fighting monsters in the apocalypse, and they have guns and all sorts of nonsense, and Scooby has like cyberkinetic powers. It still feels like Scooby-Doo, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that is difficult to do, and that's what really impressed me as I was reading it, because like you could show me a panel from that, and I could definitely figure out who these characters were just from the art style. So it was really cool, and I highly recommend at least the first volume. I don't know how the rest is going to pan out. I've heard that it's quite good, but I was very impressed by the first volume of Scooby Apocalypse. So that would be what I was reading / random recommendation of this week.
Yeah, I love it when they do like stuff we grew up with as kids, and they make it more attuned to our age group,
Sure.
or like adultize it a little bit. Like I don't it's not like super severe and like gritty for no reason from what I gather about it. But
It's definitely kind of just
yeah,
it's very stylized. It's not like disturbing. It's kind of silly in
it's
its like
kind of like,
violence.
yeah, but like they did, Hanna-Barbera is actually pretty good about that type of thing. Like, I mean, we watched Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, together,
I
right?
mean,
And that's
that's
kind of,
Adult Swim kind of making fun of Hanna-Barbera,
yeah,
but I
that's
think
the
it's a
perfect
joint
example.
production with Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, no, it
I'm
is.
pretty
It's definitely
sure.
approved. Like, it's all
Yeah.
approved and stuff for sure. But like I think it's episode 3 or 4 when they're helping Shaggy out because he gets pulled over for driving while high, you know, and like stuff like that where it's like we all knew Shaggy was
The
a stoner.
unspoken truth that we all knew,
Yeah,
that Shaggy and
yeah,
Scooby were always high.
yeah. So I like that they're not too like protective of their characters. They have a little bit of a sense of humor about it.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think that as much as they are legacy characters, I'm all for different interpretations and fun new takes on things.
Yeah.
That's one of my defining reasons why I'm a big fan of Zack Snyder, because I think he tried to do his own thing, and I respect when an artist takes something that is established and really puts a spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And yeah, Scooby Apocalypse, for me, 5 stars, 2 thumbs up. Check out the first volume. I will let you know if the rest of it holds up that standard.
Yeah.
But of course,
We got
Kieran,
We gotta wait really fast, right? We're gonna at
Yes.
some point. We were talking about this the other day, but we're gonna at some point figure out like some sort of rating scale for this show
Yes, we
to
will
do.
have a rating scale.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
nice and clever. The two of us are screenwriters in film school, senior year. Whoop. So
yeah.
we'll come up with some clever wordplay. We'll do it.
And
We'll figure it out.
if not, then we don't deserve our degrees.
Yeah. And
We're
if
not gonna
not,
accept them then.
the
Yeah,
5-star rating system ain't broke. We can be boring. We can do it.
yeah, we could do that.
We
Exactly.
can do it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Kieran, as much fun as that little digression was, of course, the big news this week was the almighty DC Fandome last Saturday. Broke the internet. Oh, there it is.
DC
Are you going to spell out Fandome?
Fandome. And
There
then
it
just
is.
DCF. I'm just doing
For those
DCF.
of you audio listening, Kieran just spelled out the letters DCF with his fingers, and then I think got bored and didn't want to do the rest.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what just happened.
But Kieran, at DC Fandome, Suicide Squad behind the scenes featurette trailer thing, Black Adam concept art feature at thing, confirming the Injustice League with Dr. Fate, with Atom Smasher. I don't remember the other characters in it right now. But...
You said Injustice League, but
excuse
Justice
me.
Society,
Justice Society of
America. Yeah,
that would be cool if they were doing the Injustice League, but I don't think we're there.
I mean,
yet.
they will eventually.
They will eventually.
Yeah.
The Flash panel confirming Michael Keaton will be in the film 2 days before the convention. When this episode went up last week, or when the episode of last week's went up, Ben Affleck was confirmed to return in the Flash. So now we have 3 different Batmen in movies in 2021. But yes, my concept art of the Flash's new suit, Ezra Miller's new costume, and right behind him, standing there, Michael Keaton's Batman. So we got that little image that seemed very cool. Of course, we got the Snyder Cut trailer, complete with Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which was a big move, and I think paid off, in my opinion. And then, of course, the big daddy of them all, the Batman trailer with Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson. I'm going to stick to that. The internet's trying to make that a thing, and I'm 100% on board. So, yeah. Kieran, I just ran down a quick cut of all the news there. We also got a Wonder Woman 1984 trailer. The movie was already supposed to come out, so both of us are kind of like, yeah, it looked nice. Cheetah looked interesting. She looked like Cheetah.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot to talk about there. I just want to see the movie. I'm just anxiously awaiting the day I finally get to see that movie.
Yeah.
But yes, Kieran, I just ran down all the news. Suicide Squad, Black Adam, Flash with Keaton and Affleck, and the new Flash suit, Snyder Cut, and the Batman trailer. What stuck out to you? What were some of the stronger things from the day? What were some of the weaker things? Give me your overall thoughts.
Jim Lee is such a nice man.
And Jim Lee was everywhere. Yeah, the great Jim Lee, as we said earlier in the show.
That was one of my favorite parts of it, I think Jim Lee kind of just embodied the whole thing for me, where it was just very fan-tuned, and it was very like, okay, we've been the worst for so long, and we had a rough start at the beginning of the DCEU, and as much as there's great movies amongst the opening lineup and stuff, there definitely was the idea of like the fans versus Warner Brothers, right? And this felt like them saying, like, extending the olive branch and saying, here's all this cool stuff we're working on. We know we kind of messed up before, but look at all this stuff. And really it worked. Like, the online reaction is insane.
Oh, overwhelmingly positive. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
It broke the internet. It's all anyone was talking about. I didn't watch Comic-Con at home, but just online conventions, this is like the second one that's really happened. Everyone was saying this blew it out of the water. So
yeah, and I've never had any complaint or quarrel whatsoever with the quality of DC movies, because for the most part, I've even though they could be better sometimes, I've enjoyed them.
Sure.
But of course, like, financially, it's always been kind of, everybody's always been like, okay, they're struggling. Like, how much longer are they going to survive? Are they going to reboot the whole thing? Like, that kind of thing. But they did a really good job. I have real hope for DC films now. Like, yeah, they're going to do good. I believe it.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I've always obviously been on the train of being excited. I liked the initial vision, and I was so disappointed / angry when Warner Brothers kind of just blew it up. They had a singular vision going forward that they had committed to, and I really think if they had just stayed on that track, they would have seen success. BVS is the Iron Man 2 of the Marvel Universe, and that movie isn't really regarded that well. I haven't seen it in a while. I know you saw it semi-recently and said it was a lot better than you remember.
Wait, Iron Man 2?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right there. There it is. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the movie that kind of like sets everything up. So it was never, it was never going to be like the best movie ever. Granted, BVS has more problems than just setup in it, and we talked about that ad nauseum last week. But I really think they should just stuck to their guns. And I think when they blew that up, who are you trying to please anymore? You had fans of those films. Now they don't want to go see Justice League or Suicide Squad, which was just a giant mess as well. And then you have the other people you've already kind of put off with your very, polarizing take. And now it feels like DC's kind of just like, we're going to make everybody happy. We're going to give you the Snyder Cut. And if it does well, maybe we'll explore that further. We brought Affleck coming back to play Batman in a Flash movie. It's been rumored for super long that Henry's coming back as Superman. You still have Gal, Ezra, and Jason in their respective roles. Obviously, Ray Fisher wants to play Cyborg. He tweets Borg life like every day. I mean, he's got his own thing going on, taking on Jeff Johns, and I'm going to wait till more details come out about that to cover it on the show because it seems like there's a whole deep thing with Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns versus Ray Fisher. Is what it is. We'll talk about it when more details come out.
Which is a fascinating thing to talk about.
Super crazy development. Yeah, but obviously I don't think there's enough information for us to have an informed take quite yet.
Yeah.
But I think now DC, they confirmed the multiverse as well. I didn't cover that in our quick rundown, but that was to be expected.
Huge. That's the biggest part.
You have a panel with Greg Berlanti, Walter Hamada, and Jim Lee, the heads of all things DC movies, DC Comics, and TV. I mean, they basically said that they're just going to they're going to let artists and directors kind of do what they want. And if the story calls for a character from a different universe, they're just going to do it. They're not restricting themselves, which I think is a great idea because you still get the benefits of an MCU situation where you can kind of have crossovers, but you also can have your own standalone thing and have it not be conflicting. So I think it's just I get what you're saying when you said that now you feel excited and hope for a long time. I think a lot of people feel that because it feels like there's now a plan, and the plan is there is no plan, if that makes sense. Yeah. But that's the plan. The plan is kind of just let them do whatever, like let the artists come in and do their takes, and we have the built-in excuse of multiverse. And that's what, segueing into a panel that really stuck out to me, that's what The Flash is going to do. That's why you have two Batmans from two different Batman universes. And who knows, maybe Pattinson makes a cameo too. That'd be nuts. It comes out after the Batman. I don't know. I know you're not really for that, and I don't know where I stand on it right now because that we'll get to that trailer, I'm sure, in a minute. But it definitely feels like its own thing, and it's a very exciting its own thing. That's a good point you made. That the excitement now seems to be there. People who weren't on board are now on board again.
And their tone was very. They hit the two thresholds they needed to cross for DC people because there's really the two DC fans. There's crossover between the two, right? But there's kind of there's the comic fans and there's the Zack Snyder fans, right? And like there, of course, as I said, there's crossover. You're a crossover, for example.
I'm a crossover between the two.
You like both of them.
We do exist.
The Suicide Squad, something like the Suicide Squad is more. That seems very comic booky to me, and I love that because that's one thing that Marvel kind of have been doing very good about is like bringing stuff over from the comics, like Endgame, the amount of like Spider-Man riding on the back of Valkyrie's horse while holding the Infinity Gauntlet, Fantastic. Like very comic booky.
Yeah.
And I want to see stuff like that from DC, and I think the Suicide Squad is one I'm very excited for. And
let's talk about that little video. King Shark, are you kidding me? There's like a little quick shot of King Shark lifting someone into his mouth, and I'm so hyped.
Yeah. I'm it's the rumor. This isn't an original thought of mine, but I would bet my left nut it's going to be Taika Waititi.
Yeah, because he's on the cast list, and when James Gunn announced, so they did the whole cast of who's
the
playing
roll call.
The roll call. A bunch of unknowns, and a DC fan like me, there was a couple characters where I was like, I vaguely have heard their name, but like not at all. And that's exciting because that's very James Gunn to do. I feel to bring in these absurd characters that are just not garbage characters. I don't want to offend anyone, but very low tier DC characters. Because then he gets the freedom to kind of do whatever he wants, like bringing in Weasel and Peacemaker or Peacekeeper, I think is who John Cena's playing. You have all these.
Blackguard is my boy. I'm so excited for Pete Davidson.
Yeah, Polka Dot Man. You have these characters that no one has this crazy allegiance to. I'm sure there's some guy out there who likes Polka Dot Man who's going to yell at me, but there's. He's doing such a James Gunn approach to it, and it looks great. It looks terrific. Well, Taika Waititi is going to be King Shark. That's positive. Yeah,
that's the through line of this whole thing, though, is that they're really kind of allowing filmmakers to make their movies. Which is huge because that's something that Marvel doesn't do really. Like they have like their Taika Waititi Thor Ragnaroks and stuff, but for the most part, the criticism Marvel always gets, like validly, is that.
There is
every single movie of theirs has a formula, right? But with the DC multiverse and with the allowing the director to really take control of that project, then you're going to have two movies made by the same studio, in the same multiverse anyway, between the Suicide Squad and the Batman, which are like opposite ends of the spectrum, but both look fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something for
exactly.
everybody, really something for
That's
everybody.
exactly what I was gonna say. There's something for everybody. Now, instead of they're now basically throwing everyone a bone, you know.
Yeah.
If something's great, then they'll move, they're allowing themselves the freedom to kind of just do whatever they want. It really
Yeah.
feels like it's going to be like an on-screen comic universe, because in the comics, every new artist or writer gets their run, and it's technically the same continuity, but it's always different and a different take on the character.
And on the same
cool.
level,
That's very cool to me.
The biggest, like the biggest titles nowadays, it's not even a little bit of, there's no skepticism to this whatsoever, but it's superhero movies are like a huge genre at the moment.
Of course, they run Hollywood right now.
Yeah, like, and that's changed the landscape of Hollywood and of cinema, where I feel like movies are slowly becoming more and more like comic books, where you don't, picking up that comic book, that number, if it's a number 4 issue, picking that up, you don't have to have read everything before that. You don't have, or even if it's a crossover, let's say you're reading the Justice League book and you've read a bunch of Batman, but you haven't really read any other characters, right? You're going to get those little Batman references that you get from reading it, but you might miss some jokes because you haven't read the other titles, but that's not going to take away from your overall experience. It's just that if you want to fully understand and get everything, you just have to watch everything. Right. Which is, if you love watching it, you're going to be doing that anyway.
100%.
Yeah.
In the case of that, like you read or you watch Justice League 2, and there's a reference to the Flash, and you haven't seen the Flash yet. You can go see the Flash, but it's still, it's not going to be burdened by the idea that you have to have seen the previous movies. Because in the case of the MCU, I mean, I've seen like 95% of the films. There's a couple I haven't seen. And sometimes in the movies, I'm like, oh, that's a reference to Doctor Strange, which is one I haven't seen, which is surprising because I feel like I'm very much in the demographic of someone who would like Doctor Strange.
That movie.
I'm super excited for the sequel with Sam Raimi directing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's a movie I haven't seen, and in Endgame or in Infinity War when he shows up, I was like, okay, like I don't necessarily need to know all his like background characters that are showing up with him. I can figure it out myself. But for a general audience goer, I could see that being like a little bit confusing. But I think the great idea with DC right now is they can do a Justice League 2, and you can see it, and the Flash can make like a quick reference to the Flash film. But it seems to me like they're not going to burden it with callbacks. It's just going to be its own thing. It's just going to be a Justice League movie with the characters from the other movies, but it's not going to be as tight knit continuity as an MCU, to say.
Yeah.
So to speak.
But
and there's pros and cons to both, 100%.
Yeah.
The MCU is a fantastic achievement, but
I feel like from based on the Fandome thing, I think they're gonna do a little bit of both. I think out of any of the movies, the Flash definitely seems the most MCU-esque of any of them, because it's I feel like that's gonna be one where it's like, okay, you're gonna have to watch this one if you want.
It's gonna be the one
crossovers
that I think is going to, well, they confirm is going to introduce this idea. It's going to be the one where Flash runs through, sees 4 or 5 different Batmen, and the audience goes, "Oh, that's the idea." I hope it's not too confusing. We'll see. The Flash is going to be the first real test of, are people ready for this?
Yeah, because stuff like the Batman or the already released Joker or the Suicide Squad, like those are all standalone movies that maybe they'll come into play later on. But
the Suicide Squad, I believe, is in main continuity because Margot Robbie's in it.
Yes, it is, but you don't have to like watch that in order to understand the next one that comes out. Versus I think with the Flash, because it just seems so big and epic, it seems like it's gonna be part of something bigger, which is cool because we want that too. We don't want too much.
It feels like the kickstart to the multiverse almost. It's gonna be like the first entry in the wider universe. Yeah,
and they were saying in their panel talking about it, they said we're gonna have crossovers, but we're gonna save those so it's not an every single time sort of thing. It's a big deal when that happens, and so they're still gonna have that. Because that's an essential part of comics too. If you want to make a comic book, you got to have those big crossover events.
Sure. And in the case of the Flash, it makes sense for all these Batman characters to appear in it, because in the Justice League theatrical cut, we haven't seen the Snyder cut yet, and we'll see it before the Flash comes out. And I assume this is a through line that's in both versions of the film. Barry and Bruce have a very father-son like relationship. It's very Tony and Peter in the MCU, and I think that's 100% on purpose. And I think that's an interesting idea to kind of make Barry the youngest member of the Justice League, and even
Do we think that that's in the Snyder Cut version
I
though?
think so. I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I trust Walter Hamada so much, and I think he wouldn't have greenlit all of this because,
Hmm.
from my understanding, and it seems to be the general consensus is, when the Snyder Cut comes out, that's going to be kind of the new continuity. They're kind of just going to let 2017's Justice League kind of fade away, and honestly, in my opinion, rightfully so. Even if the Snyder Cut isn't great, it's
Hmm.
still, for me, I'd
It's
rather
better than
see.
Justice League.
Yeah, I'd rather see what was actually supposed to happen versus the kind of Frankenstein monster we got. And
Yeah.
it could be terrible, and I could think it's worse than 2017 Justice League, but just on the principle alone of this is the culmination that Snyder wanted, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think
First of
there's
all,
no
you
way
would.
it's going to
First of
be
all,
worse.
there's no reality where Spencer Bennett does not like this movie, first of all. And then beyond
I
that,
mean, there are some things it could do that could be really bad.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I trust Zack Snyder's vision enough. I have liked all of his movies, all his DC films. So I
Mhm.
don't think for me, yeah, I'm not the demographic they need to worry about pleasing. I'm going to enjoy it. Even just for those sweet, sweet Snyder visuals. Going into the Snyder Cut trailer,
Yeah.
the shot of the shot of the resurrect or the death of Superman just from that new angle, dude, out of insane. Opening the trailer with Darkseid, insane. I'm already in.
And
I'm already
Leonard,
in.
yeah, using the Leonard Cohen version of Hallelujah, in the conversations I've had, it's gotten a lot of hate. People need to have more respect for Leonard Cohen. That's all I gotta say.
Well, everyone I've talked to is like, oh, they use such a weird cover of the song, and I'm like, no, that's the original song. That's the
Yeah.
one. The
Yeah,
song has been misinterpreted through. I mean, that's a different conversation to have. But
I've heard many people go like, "Oh, is this the original?" It's like, "Oh, that sucks." I'm like, "You're
yo,
talking about Leonard Cohen, man. You can't say that.
one of the
That's just not
greats. You
allowed."
can't say that about Leonard Cohen.
Like, don't piss on his grave like that.
Yeah. I was on a flight yesterday, and it was a nighttime flight. I was flying back to Orange. I went to go see my dad for his birthday. I'm not traveling and being all
He was
crazy
wearing
during
an
the pandemic.
N95
Yeah,
mask. He
I
was
was
doing all
all
the precautions.
sanitized up. I
Yes.
was doing my best,
Yeah.
but I was a nighttime flight, and I put my AirPods in, and I just listened to the Essential Leonard Cohen album, and I just felt so relaxed and
Did
mildly
you?
depressed. Yeah,
That's
I
so
did.
nice.
It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Was that your first time like getting into Leonard Cohen?
yeah, I mean, I knew who he
Okay.
was, but
Yeah.
I was my first time like deep diving, and it's wonderful. It was
Yeah.
so pleasant.
He's an incredible lyricist.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
very introspective. Anyways,
Uh-huh.
Leonard Cohen digression aside,
I mean, technically it's relevant.
good Snyder Cut trailer, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he used that song in the Watchmen film as well, which you haven't seen.
Oh, okay.
We won't
Yeah.
talk about because you haven't even read
I haven't
Watchmen,
seen.
so
Well,
I'm
I
sure we'll
know.
do an episode when we go into
Yeah.
Watchmen.
I know that's very tonally consistent with Watchmen because I haven't seen Watchmen because I'm waiting to read the book. I haven't read Watchmen. I know. Why do I have a comics podcast if I have not read Watchmen? I'm a disgrace. I understand this. But I still need to read Watchmen. And I've always been saving watching the Zack Snyder Watchmen movie for after that. And also the TV show, because the TV show is so critically acclaimed.
It's my dad post the novel too.
Yeah. My dad watches the TV show having never read Watchmen or really know anything about Watchmen. He really loved it. But I know musically, like, they have the ink spots in there, and that's like a pretty big part of that season of television. So it's all very old schooly music. So, which is Zack Snyder. I can see Zack Snyder being into that kind of stuff. He gives off that vibe.
Very much so. The opening of the theatrical cut of Justice League, which I believe is a Zack Snyder opening, is a Sigrid cover of Everybody Knows by Leonard Cohen. And it's kind of a montage of the world without hope when Superman died.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a cover of it, but yeah, that is. I forgot.
Pop artist, yeah. It's a really great cover. I like it a lot. And I believe that was a Snyder choice. It would make sense that was a Snyder choice to have in the movie. And not a Whedon thing. Yeah,
I wonder if whose idea the Gary Clark Jr. cover of "Come Together" was, because that's a great
probably
song.
Warner Brothers.
It's a great song. Yeah, I'm not gonna. As much as you can hate on a lot of stuff about Justice League, that song slaps.
It's great. I mean, I like Gary Clark Jr. is an incredible musician.
Yeah,
but, the Snyder Cut trailer looks incredible. It's got so much little fun Easter eggs. There's a shot of like the destroyed Hall of Justice. Are they really going to do this? Is because the original plan for Justice League, from my understanding, was that the League was going to defeat Steppenwolf, but it was going to end with Darkseid like coming to Earth and invading. Or that it was going to end with kind of like an Infinity War type ending where they pretty much lose.
Yeah,
that Flash was going to have to run back in time, and that was what happened to BVS. The whole Snyder vision of the DC universe was going to be like a time loop. And
it's gonna. I'm telling you right now. First of all, the Snyder Cut is going to be huge when it comes out because there's been so much hype behind it, and
even people who are like vehemently like, that's not a word, who are like very like not anti-Snyder, so to speak, are still
Yeah.
gonna watch it. I mean, there's still the curiosity of like, what the hell's going on in this movie? What do
This
these
is
people want to see so bad?
Yeah, and this is absolutely not the last we're going to see of the Snyderverse or of Zack Snyder working
I don't
with
think
DC.
so either. I think if it
Yeah.
does well, and I think it'll do gangbusters numbers, I think we
Mhm.
might get a Justice League 2, or maybe a mini series on HBO Max of some sort.
It's
Maybe
such
the
a
rumor right now.
beautiful yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
it's such a beautiful thing because like they're truly giving the man free reign over his creation, you know?
Mhm.
And so that is going to make people love it.
Yeah.
It's going to be I'd say it'll split people, but for the most part, like I know I'm going to go into it wanting to like it, so I'm probably going to like it. And it's going to be weird, but I think it'll do well enough that they'll be like, okay, we're still doing all these other projects, obviously, but we're like, we can throw some Zack Snyder love in there too.
When you have the multiverse, you can do the Snyder Justice League 2, bring in those other characters, and still kind of just have it work. I mean, I'm sure they would have to rework the story a little bit just to make a little more sense in the current continuity, but I'm here for it. I'm here for like Snyderverse being like Earth 1, being like the main Earth, and the other ones are like offshoots, and you can kind of play with in that world. I'm sure we'll get like a graphic at some point, like the comics have a graphic of what Earths are what, and I'm so here for that insanity coming to screen. That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Even if in the logo, you know, it says like DC Film Earth 1 or something, like it tells you like what story this is from. Oh, that just gave me chills. That'd be so cool. Anyway, the Snyder Cut looks great. It looks a lot more cyborg, lot more Flash. Watch the trailer on YouTube. Looks terrific.
Yeah.
Let's talk the Batman. Yeah, the big that broke everything. That Robert Pattinson trailer. It looks like a David Fincher movie. It looks
incredible.
Yeah, a murder mystery, really graphic. I think this movie might be R-rated. No one knows, but why not?
Do they not know? Is that
nothing's? I mean, it's only 30% shot, dude. They put that trailer together after like 2 months on set, and it's like a 6-month production.
That would be wild. That'd be really
I'm
cool.
here for it. Robert Pattinson beat the freaking crap out of that guy at the end of it. That was a brutal fight scene. And I know they shot it in a way where it's a one take or it's a one shot and you don't see the actual violence happening. So they probably get away with it. It's just really like brutal sounds.
Yeah.
But I mean, he broke the dude's arm, got him on the ground, and then punched him 2 more times. That is a unhinged Batman, and I'm here.
Pattinson is so cool.
Yeah.
Like he looks. The way they do that trailer. First of all, just such a superb trailer.
Oh,
but
excellent.
when he shows up in that when they're showing like the Riddler's crime scene and Jeffrey Wright, who's playing Commissioner Gordon, shows up, super great casting for that too. All the casting is honestly incredible for this. That is the first thing I was really excited for before this trailer even came out. But when they're like, you think they're not going to show Batman, but then they like just pan the camera over, it's literally just him walking a bit, and we were like, holy shit.
I mean, the first look at him we get is these like basically Doc Martin boots and this little homemade looking cape. And when I came on, I was like, is that him? Because that suit looks homemade. And then it turns to him like, oh, that's him.
Yeah, it's like it's Arkham, but a little bit more homemade. It's cool.
It's Arkham and the first look at the first Batman costume ever from the comics.
Yeah,
and a little bit Gotham by Gaslight with the collar, which I'm a huge fan of the Elseworld story. Yeah, super great. I watched the animated movie this last week because I was bored one night, and
how was that?
It was good. It's very different from the book, which I wanted it to be. I like when the animation does their own like takes on it, except for the Killing Joke. I heard that was awful, but
it was. I saw that. That was terrible.
But yeah, that costume, the Robert Pattinson costume, has a lot of cool influence to it. Matt Reeves also said that his biggest influence was Batman Ego by Darwin Cook. Looked pretty cool. I haven't read that before. It's an old story, but now I'm interested to pick it up somewhere.
And Zoe Kravitz is Catwoman in the Batman. Incredible.
Very homemade look. I like it. I'm hoping we get like a fully fledged costume and that it's purple because I love when Catwoman's like that dark purple. That's a great.
But I trust Zoe with my life. She knows what she's doing. If they let her design her own costume, like she's good to go. Don't cover up her tattoos, please. Do me a favor. I've watched High Fidelity. She has some sick tattoos. Let Catwoman have tattoos.
Who cares?
Let's move forward in the world.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm here for that. I don't know if we're gonna get real comic booky looks in this universe. It seems very. Christopher Nolan's movies are grounded, but they're still action movies. This looks like a grounded, dirty murder crime film. It looks like almost like unnerving.
I'm so here for it, dude.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look like a crazy big budget either, which is great.
It looks like a low budget movie. And this is like what every fan of the Riddler has been saying for years. because the Riddler's the villain in this movie. If you can't figure it out by watching the
and
trailer,
Paul Dano, I think his name
terrific
is.
Actor, terrific casting. Looks just like Edward Nygma.
Have you seen There Will Be Blood?
No, but I've seen him in Swiss Army Man, and that was good.
It's on Netflix. We should absolutely watch that.
Oh, I know.
He's the antagonist in that. I think he got an Oscar nomination for it.
It's supposed to be Daniel Day-Lewis' like best performance, and most people herald him as like the best actor of all time.
It's such a good movie. That and Akira are Kanye West's 2 favorite movies.
Really?
Which I think is a very funny mixture.
That is. It's very Kanye West.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, he looks terrific. The Riddler is Saw. The Riddler is like the Saw franchise. He's disturbing traps and gruesome murders and making people solve puzzles. That's how the Riddler is in the comics. Like, yes, there is like the silly Riddler who's like, riddle me this, and wears the green suit. But the Riddler that you see in that trailer is a take on the Riddler that has been asked for years. No slight at the great Jim Carrey. But Batman Forever is terrible, and Jim Carrey is terrible in it.
You know, I've never seen it because it's bad.
I mean, I have it because I bought the 4-disc Target collection of the 4 original Batman movies because Michael Keaton's my favorite Batman, and Batman and Batman Returns are excellent. The 2 sequels are obviously awful. Batman and Robin is a phenomenal comedy. I recommend it.
I love that. Batman and Robin, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze makes that movie.
Terrific. I mean, awful.
But all the puns.
Yeah. It was made to sell toys. They interviewed Joel Schumacher. He passed away recently, sadly.
That's sad.
But he was like, yeah, we did it to sell toys. Like they knew what they were doing. But yeah, Jim Carrey he's being Jim Carrey, but as far as like the character goes, it's an iteration of the Riddler that it's not good. It's
well,
not
Jim is doing what he was asked to do for it. It's that kind of movie. I feel like because I'm a Jim Carrey fan, if he was doing if he was doing it seriously, like he does in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or The Truman Show, that would be a very cool Riddler. But he's not.
I'd be all for Jim Carrey doing the Dark Riddler, sure.
Yeah,
100%.
that was the first movie he did after I think The Truman Show, which is very funny. Yeah, because I told you this before, but just a fun fact for the listeners at home. Jack Nicholson first day on set with Jim Carrey because previously at an award show,
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, he had beaten. What did I say?
Jack Nicholson.
Oh, my bad. Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones had Jim Carrey had beaten him out for some like passion project in like award shows or something, and like Truman Show beat out whatever his passion project was. And so the first day on set, he like walked to Jim Carrey and was like, "Let's get one thing straight. I don't like you." I think that's
classic
so
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to move on and talk about our issues
now? We had one more movie we didn't really touch on. Do you have any thoughts on Black Adam?
We cut. Yeah, I have 2 main things to say on it. The first is that my only source of concern for that is that the guy who's directing it is the guy who directs like all of the kind of popcorn flick Dwayne Johnson movies, which are great for what they are. I'd like it if this movie had a bit more substance than that, but I guess time will tell. We've only seen concept art, but I do think it's a cool thing that Dr. Fate's in it. Obviously, that's very cool. And then Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher. I like that decision. Like we'll have to wait and see how they adapt that, but I think they're kind of making fun of Noah Centineo a little bit, which is and he seems to have a sense of humor about it where he's like, yeah, I know what my brand is.
I enjoyed when he was on the panel actually talking to The Rock and they were kind of just going back and forth about it.
Yeah.
The Rock made that panel way more interesting than it could have been. Like, I mean, the selling point of Black Adam's a cool character. Would I have given him his own film? No, but with The Rock attached, that kind of changes the game as far as that goes. Like
and Dr. Fate attached.
That's what I'm most excited for is the Justice Society in the movie. But the concept art of The Rock, Black Adam looks great. The costume looks like Black Adam. I would like to see him fight Shazam. Oh, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. That's the new title. We didn't touch on that. That's all we got. It was a fun panel. But
all the original cast are going to be back.
Yep, they're doing the Shazam family.
We're going to get to see more Adam Brody Shazam, which is hype as fuck.
Captain Marvel Jr. That'd be fun. Yeah. But Shazam, Fury of the Gods. That's the name of the movie. I don't know what that means. I'm excited. Black Adam post-credit teaser, maybe. That'd be sweet. I imagine the villain will probably be Mr. Mind because he shows up at the end of Shazam 1 in the post-credits, but I don't really know what that has to do with the gods. We'll see. We don't know. It's not coming out for a while. But yeah, Black Adam looks cool. But before we get to our weekly issues, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the new adventures of K-Man and Spence, episode 2. We are going to get into the segment of the episodes now where we talk about the new issues of whatever comics we are currently reading. And we will run down the list of what we are reading right there on Kieran's screen. If you're watching, if you're listening to audio, he is reading Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy, which is, I believe, a Black Horse title, or Dark Horse, excuse me, title. We'll
Dark
talk
Horse.
about how good that one was in a little bit. We have Deadpool issue 6. Is it issue 6 or is that the variant cover 6?
Issue 6.
Issue 6. So we haven't read the issues beforehand. I guess to preface all of this, we are just jumping back in. We set up a pull sheet of all of our favorite titles that we used to read. So we're going to jump in. We bought whatever was available, and we're going to catch up to the current stuff and read the backlog, I think is what they call it. We have Strange Adventures, which is Adam Strange. That's the first issue. That is current up to date. We are going to get issue 2 possibly today.
And on Spencer's end, we have...
And on my end, of course, Batman. This is issue
Batman.
93. They are currently on issue 97, so we have a couple issues back. But this was the beginning of what they're calling the Joker War.
And they're making some power moves. They're
making some real power moves. We'll get to this one in a second. That's written by James Tynion. That one is crazy. It's very weird.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Superman, which is Bendis, which has been going for a couple of years, but this is issue 21. We are going to catch up. I believe they're on issue 25 now. But this was, we'll talk about this soon.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
We've got the X-Men. This is issue 9. This is critically acclaimed, so we'll talk about that as well. And then that's what you said, right? It's got a great review. That's why we bought it.
Oh yeah, well it had pretty good reviews, but we'll talk about that. We'll get into it. We'll get into it in a second.
We have this indie title from Boom Studios called King of Nowhere, which this is issue 3. I'm gonna get the first 2 issues, and then we're reading that currently from here on out. So Kieran, give me your highs and lows of the issues you read this week between Skeleton Boy and Skull Digger, or Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy. Of your 3 issues, tell me what you liked most, and then of my 4, tell me what you liked most.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna disclude Deadpool from the running.
We're discluding Deadpool.
Well, not in terms of like it's worse, but just because like I've read Deadpool for so long and I love Deadpool, and nothing's ever gonna be Deadpool to me. So I'd be too biased to include Deadpool.
Sure.
But for these are the 2 weird ones. These Strange Adventures by Tom King and Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy by Jeff Lemire. I really liked Strange Adventure. I loved both of them. But Strange Adventure was just within like a few pages of it, I was like, okay, narratively this is so cool. The script is incredible. The design, the art and the design of it. It's a great premise. It's about it's the first issue we're talking about here, so I feel like I can spoiler alert for Strange Adventures. But this is the
first issue. It just started. We picked it up.
He's strange. So Adam Strange is framed for the murder of one of his haters, basically, and so he tries to hire Batman to solve it, and Batman's like, no, I'm gonna put you on to my other guy. And then I don't think we find out who the other guy is at the end of the issue. I think that's like the big plot, like cliffhanger at the end. But and it's the guy Tom King wrote Mr. Miracle, I think, which is also, I think he won the Howard or the Eisner Award, because Howard the Duck won the Eisner. That's what I was thinking that. But he won
Howard the Duck Award.
Yeah, I think he won the Eisner for Mr. Miracle. So he's a very good writer, and this is kind of another smaller DC character that he's really kind of expanding. So Strange Adventures, high recommendation. Spencer, what do you think of Strange Adventures?
I thought it was great. I have not really read Adam Strange before, but you picked it up. You said, hey, this is supposed to be good. It's the first issue, and I'm like, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's on our list, so we'll be reading it as it gets published. But I thought it was great. I really loved the storytelling device where it would go from him signing his book, and he would say, hey, I'm Adam. Nice to meet you. And then it would cut to like a moment of like a critical moment in his backstory, and then we'll go back to him saying like, hey, I'm Adam, nice to meet you. And it was just a really cool idea that you're kind of seeing everything that he's like flashing back to based on these interactions of him signing his book and piecing together his backstory that way. I'm a big fan of like flashback telling of an origin. So I thought that was a really, really cool device. And then I obviously was surprised and happy to see Batman. I'm all for Batman. More Batman, the merrier.
He looked so cool too.
The art was terrific too.
Yeah, I love Batman in series where Batman is not the main character because he's
Mm-hmm.
written in a way where you're perceiving him through somebody else,
Yeah.
through your main character's perception. So he's a lot more like godly.
I liked how almost pastel like the art was too.
Yeah. We're having some work done at the moment. So
we have a handyman in our house. So.
We're just listening to make sure that we're not being signaled. I think our roommates got it though. I think we're okay.
Got it taken care of. But I thought that Adam Strange was great. Strange Adventures was really, really good. And then
should we just let's do one of yours. Let's do one of yours,
yeah.
and then we'll jump back to mine.
So your favorite of your three was Strange Adventures.
Yeah, honestly, very close because they were all really good.
Of my four, of Batman, Superman, X-Men, and King of Nowhere, what was your favorite? Tell me a little bit why.
Wait, so Batman, Superman, King of Nowhere, and
X-Men.
I think I like Batman the best. But I would tie Batman and Superman because they're for the characters, they're both really good, you know? Like I tend to lean more towards Batman than Superman in terms of my connection to the character. But it's my first time reading the Superman comic, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the way they portrayed the character is already like way better than he's done in most of the movies and adaptations outside of comic books. And so as somebody who hasn't read a Superman comic before, it was on the first 2 pages of this issue, which is just a random issue. I was like, wow, okay, I kind of get Superman in a way I haven't before.
It is issue 21 of the current Bendis run on Superman.
It can legally drink in the United States.
Yes, it can. Why was Batman your favorite?
They seem to be doing a lot of interesting stuff with it. I know you really like Batman too. As you keep saying, they spoiler alert for Batman right now, but
this is issue 92. I think we're like 3 or 4 issues back. So
so
93, excuse me, 93.
But like Harley gets her throat slit, which is crazy. Like we'll see what happens there. I like Batman because it's so Bat Family, you know, and that's what James Tynion seems to be doing. I love him. Big fan. He was one of the 2 that brought me back into comics, I'd say, when I was a teenager. So I do really like James Tynion. His Talon run is fantastic. Limited, it got canceled way too soon, but that was like his big break in the comics with working with Scott Snyder. Really, really good.
I obviously, like you just said, I love how balls to the wall crazy it was. There was so much going on, but it also wasn't too hard to pick up, just because I'm pretty familiar with the Batman mythos and the characters and kind of what's going on. This is my first time being introduced to the new character that they introduced recently, Punchline, who seems to be kind of like a newer type of Harley Quinn, and she's the one who straight up slits Harley Quinn's throat. So that was like an interesting narrative choice of, we just introduced this new kind of female Joker counterpart, and she just killed Harley Quinn.
And she's kind of a Joker. Like at one point her and Harley are fighting before that happens, and she's saying like, "Oh, you tried to change the Joker when we loved him the way he was," and she's like, "Oh my God, you're a fangirl."
She's like a Joker fangirl.
Yeah. Which I don't know. It says a lot about the Joker that he's like messing around with a fan of his, but I guess he's crazy, so he would do that.
It's a different origin for Harley Quinn for sure, because Harley Quinn was his psychiatrist that he kind of broke, and because Joker's a master manipulator and he kind of talked her into it. Versus it seems like, I don't know, I haven't read the origin of Punchline yet. I intend to find that issue because I really thought she was an interesting character. But it seems to me that she kind of was just like all in on Joker from the beginning. That she's just a big loose cannon fangirl, and that's an interesting angle to take.
Well, she's filling the hole that Harley had before, because in the current run, Harley is independent, which is carried over into the movies now. So
and the animated series, which is terrific if you haven't watched it.
Yeah, so it seems like that's gonna be how Harley is from now on. She's not gonna be a sidekick anymore. She's gonna be her own thing, which is incredible. And so they're kind of still maybe giving the Joker a replacement sort of sidekick, at least temporarily. But it's cool. I liked her. She was Harley, but enough different that it didn't feel like 2 characters who were the same talking to each other. Like there was enough variance that it was good.
I got the sense that again, this is all conjecture. We may have all of our questions answered about this character when we pick up the issue with her origin. But it seems to me that she was a very trained fighter too, because she took down Harley Quinn, and then after she does, she's like, "Let's go skin the cat." She's gonna go try and kill Catwoman. So she knows what she's doing. Like she knows her way around to fight, which I thought was interesting. I also liked the beginning with Batman and forget the name of the villain who was a new villain introduced in this arc, but he grabs a sword and Batman goes on guard, and they end up fighting this guy, and it turns out to be like the corpse of the what is the name of the character? I can't remember the top of my head. I'm not going to flip the issue right now, but and then it's revealed, and Slade tries to kill Batman. And spoilers for this issue. It's been out for a couple months now. I think this was a pre-COVID issue, so this has been out for some time. Mm-hmm. But really, really great. I love the Batman issue.
Speaking of Batman, can we transition to Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy?
I was going to say, let's get into the rest of your issues, and then we'll jump into mine.
I loved this. Yeah. Like Adam Strange was his own thing, but like this is I had no background with Skulldigger as a character. It seems like he's more Punisher than he is Batman, but
kind of a mix of both.
Yeah, Skeleton Boy is kind of like his Robin. But what's interesting is that, like, spoiler for issue 2 of Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy, but he's basically like kidnapped this kid.
It seems to be that way. The kid seems to be kind of into it, but he also was kidnapped. It's not in the sense of like Bruce Wayne took on Dick Grayson as his ward after his family died. Seems like Skulldigger just straight up kidnapped this kid. The kid seems down, but still.
But it's still that whatever that thing that they always compare Beauty and the Beast to, where it's like the Stockholm syndrome. It's kind of it's got that real kind of dark tinge to it.
It's a pretty gritty comic for sure.
I like that because it feels like an Elseworlds version of Batman, where Batman has probably a lot of mental problems and trauma, and like
Batman is a messed up dude in that.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so and Skulldigger, but Skulldigger takes it to that next level almost in a way that it'd be cool if it was a Batman, but I really like their costumes too. Yeah. The skeleton costumes. The reason I picked this up was when we were in the store and I was looking online on my phone to see like best indie comics I could be reading right now. And they said Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy is a recommendation if you want something that looks really visually cool. And that's what I look for in comics a lot of the time, especially if I'm going to the indie scene. And their costumes, it reminds me of there's a Gorillaz logo where it's the drummer or the guitarist Noodle, and she's like skeleton version of Noodle. She's wearing the skeleton costume, and it really reminds me of that, which is as high of praise as I could possibly give it.
Yeah, I thought it was.
What do you think? Do you like it?
I was really into it. Yeah, I think I pretty much echo all your thoughts. I liked that it was like a Batman Punisher kind of meet in the middle. It was super. I liked the ending. It seems like they're gonna do kind of like a corruption arc with the city. That the mayor is like a former superhero in this universe, and he's like, I'm taking down these superheroes who don't play by the rules that I did. And at the end, they get like ambushed by these other characters in this universe. I believe the universe is called like the Black Hammer world. We haven't read any of that, but based on this issue alone, I may end up reading that whole universe because I thought that was great. And we're going to pick up issue 1 to kind of just give ourselves the context. But it was not hard to pick up from the beginning of issue 2, and then now it's on our list, so you'll be hearing more about it as we go. But yeah, that was really, really great. What'd you think about the Deadpool issue? You ruled it out as your favorite because it's Deadpool, but give me your thoughts on it, and I'll give mine too.
It's really good. Kelly Thompson, I believe, is the writer.
What issue is this?
This is number 6. This is Deadpool number 6. So basically, Deadpool is the king of Staten Island. That's not even a joke, which is great.
Him being the king of Staten Island is a joke. Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be intended.
There's a Pete Davidson movie that just came out. It has to be.
That'd be a crazy coincidence, dude. That'd be a crazy coincidence. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was really good because I've read a lot of Deadpool. And different writers are able to encapsulate the character to greater or lesser degrees. And I think Kelly Thompson's pretty strong. Gary Dugan is still my favorite. I've only read 1 issue of Kelly Thompson, so it's very early on. I like the art style. I like the way Deadpool is written, the way he looks, the supporting characters are all cool. And the premise is a lot more fantasy than the former runs of Deadpool, which because they're so great, I like that because it sets it apart. And it seems like she's doing something different with Deadpool. What do you think?
I thought it was great. I really liked his like really long rant about the X-Men. The X-Men have their own island in this continuity if you're not reading it. That's apparently a spinoff of the Excalibur comic, which we're not reading, but we very well may start. We're discussing that. I love the shark. He has a little shark friend named Jeff, because the whole Staten Island is now covered in monsters. So Deadpool like became the king of it. And there's a little shark tiny baby named Jeff who keeps biting people, and it's just hilarious. It's so Deadpool. I enjoyed it a lot. I have not read nearly as much Deadpool as you have. I've read my, the big hits, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, the more like iconic titles. I've obviously read those, but I've never really read weekly, or not weekly, but monthly Deadpool, issue to issue Deadpool. So I'm excited to start that. And I really liked its issue. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very quintessential Deadpool in my mind. It felt like it nailed the character very well.
This is a number 6 issue. So like, if you're Kelly Thompson writing this, I don't think that you're really like, you're always with comics thinking like there's going to be some new readers reading this. And that's why, first of all, one thing Deadpool does really well is the like previously on Deadpool thing. But then the one thing I loved, I'm going to read this line if that's okay, because I thought this was a really great line of Deadpool. And as soon as I read this, I was like, okay, as a big Deadpool fan, it annoys me when people don't really understand Deadpool. If you're writing it, like if you're just a casual fan, of course, like everybody loves Deadpool. I'm all for people loving Deadpool. I'm really happy the character is as popular as he is now.
Sure.
But this line, he says, and the X-Men have been so snooty about their fancy Krakoa gates, which is totally nuts because even though I'm not a mutant, if you consider the fact that thanks to my movies, most people in the world believe I am a mutant. And we all know that if enough people believe it, then it basically is true. So I should totally be able to get into Krakoa on like a technicality. But do they even answer phone calls about this? The answer is no. No, they don't. Meanwhile, they're in there sitting on maybe the cure for cancer, and it's like, hello, I have cancer, man. Like, how many times do I have to help those jackass people before they give a crap about me? I mean, yes, Rogue called me back. I'll give her that. But when I called her back, I heard she was a tree now. But then I heard someone else say that she was a lighthouse. It was all very confusing, which admittedly is very on brand for the X-Men, but still. Great.
And that's the entire rant that I was referenced in my positives of the issue.
Yeah, that's all there. And it's like, but that's perfect because that's exactly demonstrating that, no, like, as you can I love movie Deadpool. The Deadpool movie is in my top 5 movies of all time. I love the first Deadpool movie and the second one. I love both of them. But it is a very accurate adaptation of the character, but even still, it kind of avoids some of the continuity stuff that's in the main like Marvel Comics Deadpool. And I really like that. Maybe it's because those Deadpool movies are owned by Fox, but Deadpool seems to be a character who really hasn't changed that much despite the movies coming out, which in comics nowadays is a rarity.
Well, it's nice when a movie really nails the tone of the character, so there's not much expectation to kind of shift direction.
Yeah, but they're still like doing the weird stuff in the comics. They're not shoehorning in Blind Owl, for example.
Right. You know? If we don't get Jeff the Shark in a Deadpool film, I'm gonna be really upset because I really loved that, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I agree with you. I do like Jeff the Shark, but I have to say, on my own personal basis, there's a lot of other Deadpool supporting characters.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No. I wasn't saying fast track him. I'm just saying at some point I would like to see him. He was
I hope, and I'm excited to read back on this because like Gary Dugan Deadpool ended, and then when that ended, I was kind of like, I wasn't reading comics at the time, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this run, and then I'm just gonna let it sit. And I know this. I'm hearing good stuff about the new writer, but I'll wait till it's collected. But then here I am, like a few months later, and Spencer's like, let's do a comic podcast. So I'm like, all right. I'm going to read Deadpool again. And I don't regret it because it still slaps. It's still my of all time favorite.
I would second that it slaps. Deadpool was your favorite. You talked a bit about, or is your favorite character? My favorite character is Superman. You talked a bit about that you kind of tied the Superman issue with the Batman issue in terms of your favorite of the ones that I added to our list. We have a list of 7 comics. We're going to make it 8. Not sure what the 8th one is yet. Maybe 9. We're gonna figure it out. We're
gonna pick up Daredevil for sure.
Yes.
By Chip Zdarsky, which I'm very excited.
The new Daredevil that's come out or has come out, I guess, this last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Superman issue, Superman's favorite character. I like Bendis Superman. He's not reinventing the wheel, but I really enjoy, specifically in this issue, I really enjoy the inner monologue. I liked Lois Lane's interaction with like the gotcha journalist and kind of just flaming them for being bad at their job.
That was
very topical.
And she was both drawn and depicted very kind of Fox Newsy. which I liked. It
The
seemed
gotcha journalist, yeah.
Yeah.
And Lois is like, "You've really struck this low or sunk this low." It was a good little moment. And Superman called himself king of the world. And I'm sure that's out of context, and I haven't been reading up to it yet. But we're gonna get the backlogs of this current run. But this is issue 21. It's Mongol. It's kind of the war worldy thing, the United Planets. It was great. I thought it was good. It was, it was a good issue. I enjoyed the writing of Superman. Like I said, I enjoyed the inner monologue, and Bendis isn't reinventing the wheel, but I also think he's doing a very good job. My favorite, you said your favorite Deadpool. My favorite Superman run is Mark Waid's Birthright, which was like a reinvented origin at the time, but that was the first Superman comic I ever read as a kid. That was currently running when I got into comics, so that's what I picked up, and I have a collected edition behind me in this bookshelf, and it's still my favorite Superman to this day of comics writing, and that might be controversial, but whatever. I think it's great. It is. I mean, it's regarded well, but being your favorite might be a bold choice. But yeah, thought the Superman issue was good. I agree with you. In terms of my 4 that I have, it probably is tied with Batman. Batman might be my favorite issue that I have of the ones that I picked, just because I thought it was so crazy. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. But
let's talk about X-Men.
Let's talk about X-Men. That was one that we had conflicting opinions about. This X-Men issue, this I believe is number 9. Yes, issue 9 of the current run. It is written by Hickman. I don't know their first name. I will check right now on the air. This is called Being Prepared. And it doesn't even say on the first page. Terrific.
It might be at the end of the comic.
It might be at the end of the comic. Wow. I'm really...
I'll just, while you're looking for it, should I just start talking?
Yeah, talk about your opinions on it.
I have a weird relationship with the X-Men, because I'm such a very, very big Deadpool fan. He is part of the X-Men continuity, and oftentimes his books cross into the X-Men canon because it's they'll have the attachment parts of it and stuff. And oftentimes, because Deadpool's so popular, they'll really emphasize the Deadpool aspect in their runs. He'll be part of the big X-Men things. But I think my problem with X-Men is just the lack of accessibility, which is partially on me, really, because if it's in that situation, it's not a bad thing on the right, and it's on I need to catch up. But I've just never, because the individual issues of X-Men I've read, were very kind of talk heavy. There's a lot of dialogue, and in the issue we were reading in particular, there's a lot of dialogue. Not much action happened. It all seemed very bureaucratic, and like it was about stopping a war in space and stuff, which is a cool premise. I like making X-Men deeper than that, but also just the confusingness of the current thing, where it's I'm way more interested in from the Deadpool issue. He crossed over with Excalibur in that issue, which is another X-Men series at the moment. And Excalibur seems 10 times more interesting to me than X-Men in space, kind of is what the current one sort of feels like. Just because of connection to the characters, first of all. It's a big cast in X-Men too, so if you fall off the wagon and you're the guy, somebody, spoiler alert, somebody eats the egg at the end of the issue, and then becomes king of the enemies they were just fighting.
These giant alien whale monster things.
What ruins it is just I don't know who that is. I had to look back and be is that a good guy, or oh yeah, he was in the other scene but he didn't say anything, so I didn't really know he was even the character that
I mean, he is an X-Men. He was with them.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really weird. I like that they were on the run from these whale monsters, but also they were telling the origin of them and who they listened to and whatnot. They're building up this whole time. They're building up this hype around this egg, and at the end, this weird alien X-Men guy just eats the egg. And I was like, yeah, I'm here. They fought off an accuser from Korea. I thought that was a fun little crossover. I guess my difference is I didn't read much X-Men ever. So I know obviously the big names, the Wolverines, the Cyclones, the Cyclops, excuse me, the Storms, I know the bigger names in the series, but I don't have that attachment to the characters as much. So I enjoyed this new cast of weirdos. I like new characters. We're talking about the Batman issue, and I was really into Punchline. I like expanding universes with new weird characters. So I guess I just don't have the attachment to the older characters that you do, to where I didn't really get that lost, because I was yeah, whatever, it's weird and I'm into it. But I also am interested in Excalibur because that's crossing over the Deadpool title. We both really enjoyed that as well. and that has
Yeah.
Wolverine. That has more like the big names in it. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of bizarre, and I like that. I like the weird whale monster art. It was cool. It's Jonathan Hickman who wrote it. I got the name finally, and I'm into it. We'll see if we keep on. If you're really not into it, then we'll try and find a middle ground that we both like, because we're splitting our list from the store. But I enjoyed it a lot. I definitely think you should give it another issue.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a try, because I always like the standalone X-Men stuff. Like if it's a Wolverine title, I like Wolverine titles. I like it when they take the individual characters and explore them. I think maybe the group setting is just something I have to get used to. I've honestly never really given a main series X-Men title a fair chance, and I can admit that first and foremost. And I loved Uncanny X-Force, for example, which is also like a team up book. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going with it. We'll see. I also want to read back on some famous X-Men runs.
Yeah,
jump
into some X-Men.
It's such a big part of Marvel, so I feel like I need to make up for my lack of knowledge there.
Mm-hmm. And the final issue we're going to talk about that we got last week was the third issue of Boom Studios' The King of Nowhere, written by W. Maxwell Prince. Tyler Jenkins and Hillary Jenkins probably did art and pencil and all that jazz. This is a weird story. It's seems like a nuclear fallout is kind of where they're going. The cover is a guy in a hazmat suit, and most of the characters are weird, like animal-human hybrids, and the place is called Nowhere. It seems mystery-esque. We don't really quite know what's going on. It doesn't seem like we're supposed to. But, you follow these characters. It's like a detective, a normal human, and this weird bird guy whose parents are fish. Or it's a fish guy whose parents are birds. It's odd. It's an indie comic. It's kind of swinging for the fences, but I thought it was cool. I'm definitely interested in reading the first two issues beforehand. It's strange, it was odd, and I like, pardon my French, I like weird shit, and I thought it was weird, and I'm totally okay with keep giving it a couple more shots to. It hooked me by the end. I
enjoyed it. Yeah. It's weird. It's a very weird premise, and I remember you started to read it and you were like, oh, this is like furry stuff.
I don't quite think it was. I think my first hunch was just animal people, but I think it's supposed to be like nuclear fallout kind of thing, or like a science experiment. By the end of it, you get the kind of sense that they're living in like a bubble, and that they kind of were like experimented on, and it's like a fake society. It's almost like Matrixy. I'm just ready for it to go like full weirdo.
I feel like it has odd. Yeah, it has a vision. I feel like there's a vision behind it, so I'm excited to see the creator's vision.
Yes, but this was issue 3. Maybe we'll pick up issue 4. I don't know when that came out, but we have a list, so we can go pick it up whenever it comes out. But I'm definitely interested in reading the first 2 issues of it. I thought it was entertaining and weird, and it hooked me. If it doesn't go places, then maybe we'll reconsider. But I think we have a pretty strong list going. All the titles we read, I don't think any of them we thought were like bad. X-Men you were a little lukewarm on, but I enjoyed it, and I think I feel like we had a good first attempt at picking new titles.
Yeah, we chose some good ones. In comics, I feel like there's a series that are like really good, and it's kind of like they trust a creator, and they're like, okay, we want, for example, I'm excited for Daredevil, so I'll use the example of Chip Zdarsky, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
They're like, we know Chip is a great writer. His books all sell really well, so they're like, do whatever you want with Daredevil, and Chip's like, okay, I'm gonna do that, and that's what seems to be the vibe going forward for that. So there's those titles, and then there's the ones where they're like, this is a character that people are a fan of. Let's just make a fan servicey title. Like I love Red Hood. A lot of Red Hood's titles are like that, especially as they start to drag on past the first or second arc. And so I was considering buying the Red Hood and the Outlaws. It seems like it's ending soon, so I was kind of like,
we almost bought the current Aquaman, and that got canceled. So we're just gonna read it when it comes out on volumes.
Yeah,
but that's supposed to be great, and obviously we both are. I'm a big Aquaman fan, and you like Aquaman too. And
I like Aquaman. I need to read more, but I've read the first volume of the Jeff Johns.
New 52, man. New 52 Aquaman slaps. Yeah. But back to what you were saying.
But yeah, no, I mean, but like and so we definitely went more towards the critically acclaimed stuff, right? The stuff that we
played a little safe.
We knew was going to be good, which is good. Yeah, we didn't play it too safe either, though, because we have some indie titles in there. I do love my indie comics. But yeah, I guess moving forward, we're going to add Daredevil, definitely.
Talking about possibly adding the Deceased sequel, Dead Planet.
Yes, and Excalibur. if
in the
we're
cards
considering
too.
that. And I feel like I'm forgetting something.
We talked about Green Lantern season 2 as well,
Right,
because that's supposed to be that's Grant Morrison's final Green Lantern run, and that's supposedly very good. And we love Grant Morrison, and I like Green Lantern. You don't know a whole lot about Green Lantern, but talking about that. But so you'll be with us along the process, whoever's listening and or watching this, of what we add or subtract from the list. You know, it's ongoing. We're gonna give everything a shot, and if things just aren't working for us, and we'd rather read something else, then we're gonna do that. But I think we are out of time and out of topic. So thank you so much for listening to this second episode of the New Adventures of K-Man and Spence. If you liked the show, you can tell a friend about us or check us out at anchor.fm/the New Adventures of K-Man and Spence. This episode will be live on YouTube, Spotify. We're not approved for Apple Podcasts yet. It's taken a while, but every other podcast server we are available on. You can tell a friend about our show, like I said earlier, and help us grow our small community of comic fanatics. Give us 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, 5 issues out of 5, whatever you want to rate it, you go for it. Again, thank you for listening, and K-Man and Spence, we'll see you next week.
Really, really fast before we cut off entirely, right? Let us, if you are listening, we're gonna make a social media account soon. Let us know what you're reading. Keep up with us. Like,
yes,
and recommend titles to us. I love to create. When we eventually do get a listenership, we're on episode 2 now. I'm sure we have only our friends are listening right now. But if we do get an actual listenership going, I'd love to have like a little comic club type thing come together.
Sweet.
Where it's like, we can pick up our new comics on Wednesday, have our episode released by Friday, and we'll have the titles that we're going to read and talk about. And because, you know, like growing up reading comics, not having something like this to listen to, it's oftentimes I'd be reading these issues and be like, I want to talk to somebody about this so badly. I want to hear like anybody's take on this. So yeah, we want to be involved, basically.
Yeah.
What I'm saying. Yeah.
But thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
And don't get bitten by we need to think of
don't get bitten by a radioactive spider.
Or we can do another one. We can say, watch out for gamma radiation.
Watch out for gamma radiation. You know, do your best.
Bye-bye.
Writing and producing for this episode of The New Adventures of K-Man and Spence was done by myself, Spencer Bennett, and my co-host, Kieran Collins. Editing was done by Spencer Bennett. Our logo was created by, again, you guessed it, Spencer Bennett. Our music was composed by Brandon LaBelle. This show is a proud participant in the Deconstructed Podcast Network, complete with the Disney Deconstructed Podcast, unofficial experts hosted by Preston Moore, and the Maybe You Should Care political discussion show. Link for that is in the description. Again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Excelsior.
Nice.